everybody, Randy Reviews It here. So today we're doing an initial review on these, my HK P30s. So let's start off with why would I get an HK P30 when the VP9 and that sort of thing exists, the striker fire? Why am I going backwards? So it starts with, I'm a big fan of 1911 Syndicate. And if you see Chris Blau, he talks about like his like gun that he's putting all these rounds through and stuff like that. He gets a chance to shoot all this crazy stuff, you know, Nighthawks, Infinities, Cabots, Alchemies, things like that. So I had to know, like, why is he shooting this HK P30? And he told me that, like, dude, you just have to try, like, with what Langdon does to it. So originally I was looking to see, you know, like how much a Langdon PTT costs or a Langdon Tactical P30 costs. And then I thought, you know, like it might make a good video to buy P30s, test them, then send them into Langdon and see how much that they improve and, you know, if the Langdon service is worth it. By all accounts, it sounds like it will be. I know James Reeves is a huge fan of Ernest Langdon and everything Langdon Tactical is doing. I know Duck from Alchemy Custom has one of their 92s that he swears by and stuff like that. So really excited. So I went on Gunbroker, decided to procure me 2 P30s. And the reason I got 2 is when I first started looking at it, there's 2 different distinct trigger types. So this HK P30L that you see here has the LEM trigger. With what that is it's the same trigger pull every time. So gun is empty, everything's good like that. There's a decent amount of take up, but it's very smooth, and then just a clean roll through and a break. So I measured it in, it comes in at 6 pounds. With it, it's a very simple 6 pounds. I was pretty effective with it, even though I'm used to like these 4.5 pound triggers on some of my other guns. So then the other trigger they offer is their DASA. So this is a double action, single action gun with something pretty slick is on the back. You can see right here, just slightly, there's a decocker. When you hit that, it drops in a decock mode. You get the full double action, which is much heavier, kind of designed around like safety when carrying. You know, they didn't have great holsters probably back in the day. So now that we got Kydex, we got these good companies making good holsters. It's a little, people are carrying lighter triggers. So this trigger pull, the double action, is about, I would say 13 to 14 pounds. My meter only goes to 9. The single action came in yet at 6 pounds, which means the single action on this is the same as the double action on the LEM. The LEM gives you that chance to do the second strike, which is why it's a little bit different than like a double action only, or I should say why it's a little different than a striker fired gun. You know, like what would appeal to someone with a double action only? And it's because it's harder, but you can get that second strike if you have a light primer strike. So I wanted to see what these guns can turn into. I noticed people swear by them, and it was almost like some divine intervention, although I'm not huge into that sort of thing. It's like the second I knew I was going to buy these, Honest Outlaw and Mr. Guns and Gear did a video, and they did their top 5 most reliable pistols. These came in at number 1, and it's no surprise. If you look up anything about the P30 series or the USP series before it, these are arguably the most reliable handguns on planet Earth. And people have, you know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of rounds on these. And so it appeals to me. It's like, you know, I'm one of those fans of like thinking about what happens, you know, when shit hits the fan or post-apocalyptic. And arguably the most reliable gun in the world, the pistol, it's appealing. It's definitely appealing. So let's talk about some of the other pros on what makes this a great gun besides its legendary reliability. So the first thing I'll talk about is it shoots very soft. It's got a good recoil impulse. When we get into the breakdown video a little later, you'll see like it's got a few different internals in here that I think assist with that recoil management. But overall, the first thing that appeals is the USP had pretty legendary, like, bad ergonomics. Like, people grab that, I've grabbed it, it feels like a brick in your hand. Like, it's not very comfortable. The P30 went about getting these ergonomics a different way. And I mean, this is still the style that's on the VP9, so this is held up. And with new guns right now, we have this amazing kind of market where there's all these guns, they're mostly reliable, they're mostly good. So it really comes down to what I think 90% of how well you're going to shoot a gun. How well does it fit in your hand? Can you grip it well? So everyone's got little different hands. I got these meat hooks, whatever you call it. So with the VP9, it fits my hand very well. So it has adjustable back straps on the back, but one of the things it also does is it has adjustable kind of palm swells. So for me, one of the things that happens on my VP40 and stuff like that is when I pull this trigger, there's a little trigger trough down at the bottom designed if you had gloved hands so that your gloves don't get stuck. Well, that ends up cutting your finger after, 100 rounds at the range or whatever it might be. So what I did is to move my finger back where it should be on the trigger correctly, like just that pad. You can put a palm swell on just the right side, so it makes your grip like exactly what you want, makes your trigger finger line up on the trigger exactly where you want. It's pretty cool. I know Atlas is doing it on their guns, where they have kind of palm swells that you can fit in there, so that it moves that trigger finger, depending on which handed you are, it moves that trigger finger so that that trigger lands just on the tip of that where you want it. So, very, very good ergonomics. It's over-engineered. HK is great about their engineering. And then let's talk about one of the things that I really love about these guns. The paddle mag release. So you can see right here, there's a paddle that you can just hit with your index finger instead of shifting your grip, hitting that thumb, whatever it might be. So HK has the paddle release. Walther had a paddle release on their PPQ that I have. But Walther ended up bending the knee to us uneducated, uncivilized people here in America that use button mag releases. And HK said, fuck you, we were right all along. And they kept it on there, and I'm glad they did, because they were right all along. Generally, I think HK is smarter than most of the consumer market on some of their firearms, which is why they're so desirable, which is why they have this legendary reliability, all these performance factors. John Wick picked it in the first movie. He got it right, I think. But the mag paddle release is amazing. And when you barely have to touch it. It's something that you have to noticeably touch. It's not like, I've never seen it accidentally bumped. Shot a lot of these paddle releases. I've never seen it accidentally bumped. But when you knowingly hit it, that mag shoots out of here. You could probably knock someone out just about with the mag. Like, they did a great job. I've never seen a mag have to get stripped out of one of these things. They fly out of there. Their mags are expensive, but they're really, really well built. The other thing that's kind of interesting, and we'll show it in the breakdown, but you don't actually have to take like the slide release out of this gun or like take anything out of it to take it down. You just press something a little bit to the side and it all comes down. So if you're wrong-handed, this LEM is a very good gun for you. On the DASA, the D cocker is only on one side. You can't move it around. So if you're wrong-handed, it's a little awkward to hit. But the LEM one, you have slide releases on both sides. You have paddle mag on both sides. You could put palm swells on either side. So this is, wrong-handed person's dream gun, if you ask me, on the LEM trigger. So a lot of good things, good trigger, good reliability, good ergos. yeah, overall, it's a great gun. So let's get into the breakdown now, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about the cons. All right, so let's get into the breakdown of this. One of the things that's kind of interesting is you don't actually take a pin out on this. You just move the slide release to the side. So when you slide the slide back, you'll see there's the slide release area right there, and then the square thing kind of in front. When the square lines up with where the front of the slide release is, so that square block right there, you just push it through on this side in that little dot there, and the pin comes, and then you see the red, and basically means you can take it down, and it just all slides off. So one of the things that's pretty interesting is you look at the recoil spring right here, and guide rod, and it's got kind of a like buffer system on here. So it's made out of metal, and it's got a little plastic front on here, and this buffer kind of goes up and back, or basically holds on the front of your gun to ease it when it does recoiling. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. I've never seen something like that on a guide rod before. The other thing is you can see that little hook, and what's interesting is how it fits in here. So basically the gun connects like that, so you can see that. So when the slide goes back, the barrel tilts. Basically this goes back down to here and then comes back up. So it's kind of going there to there, there to there. So it's not really tilting very far, and it's like keeping clawed in there. So it's locking things in really tight and keeping that seated, which leads to what most people think of as HK's like legendary accuracy on these P30s, how they keep that, you know, tight group, how they pass those trials, everything like that. So these HKs are ridiculously accurate. So the trigger system looks really interesting and really odd. And then the other thing is, because this is a hammer fired gun, like the inside of this is basically just hollow. Like there's, you know, the firing pin in there, I'm sure some springs and things like that, the extractor claw. But like compared to a striker fired gun, there's very, let's see if we can get in there, there's very little in this slide. So it's really interesting how that's all set up and things like that. All right, everyone, we're back. We're here to talk about the downsides to these HK P30s, and there isn't much. Some of it is partially my biomechanics, and then other is just, you know, they haven't really updated this because people have moved into that striker world. I think we're going to see a trend down the road of people coming back to these DASA guns, especially with, I mean, I've just been shooting them lately, and they've been a blast. They shoot better than I remember. And with companies like Langdon or stuff like that, more aftermarket trigger, people getting more confident. We have YouTube. We can watch videos on how to do triggers ourselves, potentially. So we're going to be making those DA triggers better. But the first con, and the main one for me, is I talked about a little bit in the breakdown, but there's a trigger trough right there. So that trigger trough on these, I've ground those out. So usually there's like a really sharp wall on each side of that trigger trough. And if you shoot enough times in a day and your finger kind of hits that trough, you'll get like a wound eventually. It'll turn into a wound. It might turn into just a sore, a callus, or something like that. But it gets painful to shoot for an extended amount of time. So what I do, and I'll have a video coming out on how to exactly do it, but I take a little cutting bit and I knock those walls down on the trigger trough so that it's kind of smoothed out on the bottom. And then I don't have any issues with my fingers when I'm shooting all day. The next thing let's talk about is I got into shooting optics on my pistols. I plan on putting optics on these once they get sent into Langdon. But that is the downside of buying the P30 over the VP9. The VP9 now comes optics ready. Fortunately, the P30 does not. So you have to send that in. There's companies like Armory that do it. Langdon Tactical does it. And a few others. I'm sure you could talk to someone who's familiar with milling that in, and they could work on this. But yeah, the optics. And then the last thing with HK, price. So, you know, it's kind of like an ongoing meme how HK prices their stuff, how people that don't own HKs or something like that are called poors. These weren't exactly crazy expensive. This one, I think after taxes and fees, came to like $658 on Gunbroker, so I got a reasonable deal there. This one came to, I believe, $730 after taxes, fees. I live in Tennessee. The sales tax is really high here, but I don't pay property tax or income tax for state, so that's great. So the price on these gets a little high, and especially like if you want a USP, you're looking at like closer to $800. They hold their value pretty well. I mean, obviously I've taken the trigger trough out on these. They're not cosmetically amazing anymore, but that's fine. I'm going to keep these forever. I already know it. I shot them. I enjoyed them a lot. Yeah, so that's the only other con is the price. These are a little bit higher than what you'd expect. You know, when you see like VP9s are still high as well compared to Glocks. Someone's like, well, why would I get a VP9 when Glocks are here and I can make a Glock how I want it? I'll put this out there. I got the Walther PPQ as like a sentimental gift way back in the day. And I wish I would have gone with the VP9 then. I really do. I regret that Walther PPQ purchase. It's been a great gun, but like I did on the PDP, the PPQ is very snappy. The grip's a little bit shorter than I'd like on that PPQ, and I feel like the VP9 one is better. So I have buyer's remorse on the PPQ. It's a sentimental gift, so I'm never getting rid of it. But if you had your choice on a striker-fired gun right now, I would say the VP9. If you didn't own any other striker-fired guns, if you weren't, you know, like neck deep in Glock mags already, the VP9 might be something you consider. If you're looking at going all out and sending it to Langdon and everything like that, these P30s are going to come out amazing. I just know already. I'm getting the flat face trigger in here. This LEM Langdon, I'm going to get the extra light package on this. So it's going to be 3¼ pounds to, I believe, like 3 3/4, somewhere around there, which is going to be, I think, absolutely insane. But this is the LEM. I probably don't, or the L. I probably don't plan on carrying it as much as this. This will get tuned down, and it looks like Langdon basically halves the trigger weight on this. So the double action will turn into about 6 or 7 pounds. And the single action will turn into roughly 3¼ or 3½ pounds, according to Langdon's site. But yeah, looking forward to shooting these a little bit more and then sending them into Langdon to get work done. If you've gotten work done by Langdon on your P30s already, leave a comment, send me something on Instagram. I'd love to check it out. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Please feel free to comment, question, dislike, whatever you thought with this video. But overall, I'm very, very happy with my purchase of these. It was kind of a step in a, why am I going down this route? But there's just too many people that I trust that have good experience with it, like saying it's on next level once it gets done, that I needed to check it out for myself. And so far, even without the work done, I'm very happy that I am. Got a bunch of mags on the way. Mag Shack had a pretty good deal. Check them out if you get a chance, or if you're looking for P30 mags, VP9 mags, whatever it might be. So they had a pretty decent deal. So I got some mags on the way, looking to put a lot more rounds through these before I send them into Langdon. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Take care.